Okay, thanks for tuning in to the OFN meeting room on the Our Lads Football Radio Network. And before we talk Detroit Lions football, make sure to order the Our Lads Draft Guide, 39 years and counting. That's right, the Our Lads Draft Guide. You see it right here. And you can go ahead and log on to ourlads.com and get yourself a subscription right away. And by the way, don't forget the draft review guide comes out about a month after the draft, and that's also a valuable piece of information. Okay, let's find out how the Detroit Lions have been doing this offseason with Jeff Risdon of the Lions Wire at USA Today. Welcome to the show, Jeff.
Thanks, Greg. Yeah, I got my copy of the Our Lads Draft Guide on Monday, and I've been looking at it ever since. It's a great tool.
Dan wants to hear that. That's awesome. All the time we always do these tests before the show, and we're checking out levels, we're checking this out, we're checking that out, and I've got my copy right in front of, because I don't really care about my video. I care about your video, so I care about your video and any copy I need. So I start the recording, I do my copy, I'm talking to you. I put my copy down just to go ahead and check everything, and lo and behold, I forgot to open up my video. So I was invisible for the first 5 seconds, but I'm back. All right, anyway, so Jeff, we're ready to go. How long have you been with USA Today?
This is my fourth draft with them, and I've covered. I also run the Browns Wire, so I do Cleveland Browns, and used to do the Houston Texans as well. But now we're just Lions and Browns, which is
that's a lot.
An interesting curse to me. I'd love to cover a winning team at some point.
Yeah, I didn't even think about it until you said it. Yeah, Detroit and Cleveland. Wow, that's interesting. So, how long have you been covering Cleveland for?
I am from Cleveland. I've been with doing Browns in one way or another since 2014. I've actually been doing the Lions in one form or another and various trails since 2006. So it's been a long haul. Yeah.
Pretty bad. But matter of fact, I just spoke with John Costco yesterday about the Browns from PFF.com. And so we went over how, the whole, rigmarole of the losing, or, the constant changes within the front office and so forth. And really it's interesting because Detroit's a little bit different. Cleveland is very impatient, and they're constantly switching coaches and GMs and trying to get a formula. But that's not the Lions. The Lions organization, as you know, is very patient, sometimes too patient. But I must say, there were a lot of people, including me, that when they let Caldwell go, because I'm never a big Caldwell guy. I thought he was a good coach and he's a good guy. But is he a great guy? Is he a great coach? Is he one of these exciting candidates? No. So I understood why the Lions decided to move on and try to get that sexy hire in Matt Patricia. But when you compare where they were with Caldwell and what's happened the last couple of years with Patricia, you go, wow, what did we do?
Yeah, it did not work so far. It's 2 years in, and Jim Caldwell's 9-7, which was not good enough at the time. We've won 9 games in 2 years since then. Patricia, for whatever reason, it has not worked thus far. They've shown you a very divergent path to the bottom from what the Browns have over the past 2 decades, and proves that there's more than one way to skin a cat. And unfortunately, the Lions are a skinned cat right now. They're picking third. They're coming off a year where they were 3-12-1. Matthew Stafford got hurt halfway through, fractured some vertebrae in his back. Oh, the defense was terrible. It's been a rough time for the last couple of years to be a Detroit Lions fan, because there was legitimate promise and hope. Jim Caldwell got the team to 9-7. I agree with you. He wasn't a great coach, and I agreed at the time with the decision to move on from him, thinking that was as far as he was ever going to take them. And
I love the outfit, by the way. I love the behind you.
Oh, so my daughter is schooling from home, and it's Crazy Hat Day, so she's got a pineapple on her head.
Well, everybody's at home now, so pineapples on top of a head is probably the least of our concerns, right?
Yes, that's absolutely true.
Interesting, because last year it actually looked like they were headed somewhere early on. Even though they were losing, they lost a Chief game they should have won. They lost a Packer game they should have won. You got the
Yes.
feeling that, okay, but just keep doing what you're doing, and it's early, and you'll turn things around. And then the Stafford injury, and then it got so ugly. But that's part of the reason why there is some optimism within the upper levels of management with Detroit, ownership in general, that, you know what, maybe we can forgive what happened last year, because look, the injuries were just too ridiculous, including Stafford, that if we can start off like we did last year, this year, and continue on potentially progressing and keeping Stafford healthy and so forth, and maybe even adding this draft and this offseason to make this team a viable playoff contender, then we'll give it another shot. And but this is it, isn't it? No matter whether there's injuries or not, this is probably the last year, the last chance, right, for both Quinn and Patricia.
Yes, yeah, they are married together. They will rise or fall as a unit. We refer to them as shorthand as Quintricia, and it's very apropos because they are going to win together or they're going to lose together. And this is a year. The owner, Martha Ford, by the way, a very different owner than her late husband, William Clay Ford. She has told them it's time to win or else. Hasn't necessarily mandated that you have to make the playoffs, but it's pretty well a given that if this isn't a playoff team, there will be a new regime next year. And by the way, most Lions fans are pretty okay with that.
Is that Martha Firestone Ford?
Yes, it is.
I love that
yes.
name. I mean, come on, how can you not love that name, Martha Firestone Ford? That's like a cool name,
Yeah.
isn't it?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. She's a very fascinating woman, honestly, and has been a very hands-on owner. Has been much different than her late husband, and different for the better. Although her hiring choices have not necessarily panned out the way that anybody hoped. She's in her mid-90s right now, still very spry. She rides around her golf cart at practice and talks to players, talks to the coaches. She's very involved, but the success just hasn't been there yet, unfortunately.
Okay, let's start with the defense, and there is a new defensive coordinator. So tell us a little bit, and even though Patricia, of course, runs the defense,
right?
What is that about? Actually, there's a new defensive coordinator and a new special teams coach, but let's start with the defensive coordinator. What is that about?
Yeah, the defensive. So Paul Pasqualoni was Matt Patricia's mentor in college at Syracuse, and that's where he got his coaching teeth cut, anyways. And it just didn't work. Patricia essentially ran his own defense last year. It was a hybrid 3-4-4-3 that relied on rushing three and getting coverage sacks, and it did not work, period. Their pressure rates were abysmal, asking cornerbacks to cover 5 seconds. Dak Prescott in the Cowboys game had a great quote after it. He's like, I was able to go through my progressions twice. That's negligent defensive coordinating, and that's why Pasqualoni has gone. They brought in Corey Undlin, who comes from Philadelphia, where they run a straight 4-3 under former Lions coach Jim Schwartz, where they have 2 defensive tackles and then wide 9 pass rushers on the outside. It's very different from the Patricia scheme. We are all very curious how that's going to look in Detroit. How much influence Undlin will have?
Okay.
Will they go to have more of a set 4-man line? Will they run more wide 9? Will they blitz more? Because that was something that they were sort of averse to. And they got rid of Devon Kennard, who was the sack leader the last 2 seasons, had 7 sacks each of the last 2 years, because he doesn't necessarily fit what they want anymore, which has led to a lot of consternation. What are they doing on defense? So we're all a little bit in the dark how much influence Undlin will have, how much hands-on Patricia will still have on the defense. Will they be an amorphous scheme? Multiple is the key word. That's the buzzword that Patricia uses a lot. Will they be less multiple than they have been, because multiple has not worked?
Well, you look at starting with free agency, and the Lions still have a lot of cap space available, so that's good if they need it. But if you take a look at their top 4 moves in free agency on defense, you got Collins, Trufant, Nick Williams, and Shelton. And I made a pun of it, of course, I covered the Lions for the draft guide this year. And I just kept kind of reminding everybody every time I talked about a player that they added. Oh, by the way, it's another former Patriot.
Yes.
So, but we know how it works. Starting with the defensive line, this is really, especially any 4-3 team, we always talk about it. this is where you have to excel. You've got to get pressure on the quarterback. Trey Flowers was a really good pickup last year. You lose, a couple of key players though, up in the middle, and Harrison and Daniels, and you also lost Deshaun Robinson. So talk a little bit about, even though Shelton's there and Nick Williams is there, it has to be in my opinion, the priority position of the team heading into the draft.
Yeah, they certainly need more than just Danny Shelton and Nick Williams. Deshaun Hand will be coming back. He was good as a rookie. He was hurt last year. Everybody was hurt last year. Is the easy way to sum up the Lions' defensive line last year. Snacks Harrison did not play well when he did play. He's had beef since then and is now gone. He's really the only player that they will miss out of that. Deshaun Robinson just never materialized as a second-round draft pick. He's just a guy. Mike Daniels, unfortunately, did not work out. His foot injury that he suffered in Green Bay he wasn't who anybody wanted him to be anymore. So they've got to get somebody in there. Shelton is a very prudent pickup because I think he can play both spots on the inside, and I think that the Lions do value the versatility up front. And Williams strikes me as a situational pass rusher, but they got to get somebody in there for the other situations, and they don't have that guy right now.
And so you go into a draft. Let's see. The Lions pick third. So and everybody on their draft board seems to be going cornerback, which is completely understandable. But we'll get to that in a little bit. But the other thing too, I mean, it was so close though. I mean, and as a Jet fan, I know the feeling because we were so close to Bosa. We were right there. We could have gotten Bosa.
Yes.
And then that's okay. We got Quinnen Williams. He's all right. There's nothing, but it hasn't panned out yet. But we're hopeful. And that's kind of where the Lions fans have to be thinking about Young, right there. One team, one pick ahead of them, especially for the defensive line, which is such a priority. So how do they handle that in the draft, considering the likeliness that they'll wind up picking Okudah? I don't know whether or not a trade down is possible. Quarterbacks, it could be a preemptive strike to move up and grab one, which could be a benefit to the Lions to move down. But after Young, there just aren't a lot of top. I guess the point is, if you're looking for edge rushers, you're just not going to find them early in the draft.
Yeah, and last year they were one spot away from getting Josh Allen, who they wanted and everybody else wanted for them, and they wound up with T.J. Hawkinson instead. And like Quinnen Williams with the Jets, Hawkinson was good, but hasn't really been the impact that anyone. It's 1 year, and the arrow's definitely pointing up for Hawkinson. Sure. But Josh Allen would have been great, and missing out on him last year, and then this year missing out on Chase Young. At 3, it's too high for a guy like Caleb on Chase who I think is going to be very good, but you're not taking a guy like that at 3. It's very angst-ridden the way that's going to play out, unfortunately.
Okay, let's then talk about Okudah potentially being the guy, because it makes a lot of sense, even though, as mentioned, you have Trufant who's in there. Roberts was picked up in free agency, but he's just a depth guy. You also picked up, of course, Deron Harmon and Curse, but you need that lockdown guy. Slade's gone. You need that number one guy. And is that just, unless you get blown away by a trade, is it going to be Okudah?
It sure seems that way. He has been the overwhelming consensus mock choice from both those of us who cover the Lions and know the team well, and from the national perspective too. The only way that it's not is if that they think that they pick 35th in the second round, 35 overall. If they think that they can get a cornerback there that would be ready to roll right away as a potential number one cornerback, because I think they view Trufant, and I view him this way as well, as a guy who's a really good number 2, but if he's your number 1, you probably want somebody better. And Okudah would certainly be better. He's phenomenal. I've used this line several times. He is the successor for Denzel Ward at Ohio State, and a better player than Denzel Ward was at Ohio State. Denzel Ward went number 4 overall in 2018 and made the Pro Bowl as a rookie and deserved it. So you're looking at a really high impact player potentially in Jeff Okudah. He makes the most sense at number 3. He also makes the most sense if they trade back to number 5 or number 6, because they have a definite need. again, they are a coverage sack team. If you can't cover, you can't get the sacks. Yeah. And Okudah covers better than anybody in this draft. It does seem like a no-brainer pick. It's certainly not a lock. We don't know, but the smart money is definitely on Jeff Okudah at number 3.
Okay, now at linebacker, I noticed that Jared Davis, who's been – I really thought when Davis came into the league that he was going to be a lot better than things have worked out for him so far.
We all did.
Yeah, I can imagine.
Yeah.
But last year, I noticed that in limited snaps as an outside, maybe some edge rushing opportunities, that he actually did a lot better. Now, that was statistically speaking. And that's the reason why I was even thinking about, you bring in Ragland, you got Collins, your second-round draft pick from last year. So you have some excess linebackers. I was thinking, is it possible the team will run a little bit of 3-4 at times and put some more linebackers on the field and maybe move Davis to the outside permanently?
That would be most Lions fans would love that. The fact that Davis does have some ability to cover. He's a very good pass rusher. That's his best attribute. And letting him do that more would probably be a very good thing. He is so lost in coverage. That's why they went out and spent the money that they did on Jamie Collins, who's arguably the best cover linebacker in the league. They have a lot of linebacker talent. How well it all fits together remains to be seen. Jelani Tavai, last year's second-round pick, was good, not great as a rookie. He really took off, though, late in the season. Once they put the green dot on his helmet, he got better. And the arc is definitely up for him. So linebacker, not really an early draft need for this team. They've got a ton of them. I think they have 12 of them on the roster right now. Obviously, all those guys aren't going to stick, but they can trot out a starting 4 that can be a very good one if deployed properly and everybody works together well, which is that's an ongoing issue for Detroit.
Oh,
but the personnel is there for them to have a good linebacking core right now.
On offense, of course, we could start with Stafford, and you don't know health-wise. We could just never tell, but he's a durable guy. And
yes,
just because he had 1 year where things didn't work out, and you look at his age, I think I can understand why some fans might be thinking, uh-oh, is this the end of Stafford? Because I'm hearing, and I don't know how true it would be, but do you think that there would be any way that the Lions would be thinking about a quarterback with their first pick?
Not this year. And again, I think they are very committed to Stafford. Everybody in the organization, including Mrs. Ford, has declared this is Matthew Stafford's team. He will be the starting quarterback in 2020. If he's good, then he'll be the quarterback beyond that. If he's not, they're going to look at a quarterback next year. And it would probably, if Stafford isn't good, they're going to be in the top 5 again next year, and that's a great time to get a quarterback.
Point.
And I think they are very comfortable rolling that scenario, that if they need a quarterback for beyond 2020, they'll get it after 2020 because they'll be in a position to land a guy like Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, whoever rises up in the coming college season. That is definitely where they're at quarterback. I know that there are rumors and whispers out there that they would take Tua Tagovailoa, give him a redshirt year. That doesn't help them win games in 2020. This is a regime that has to win games in 2020.
Exactly.
I don't have any comprehension of how somebody can justify taking Tua Tagovailoa with his injury history there. It's nonsensical, and both Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia have come out and said such, and I will take their word for it.
Yeah, I mean, you hit it right on the head. I mean, unless the ownership had said something like, hey, man, you guys, you've got 3 or 4 years. Be patient. All right, maybe there would be some consideration about taking a guy. But like you said, they know they're on a short leash. They can't be taken, justify a guy that won't even help them this year. So especially at that number 3 position.
And Stafford, by the way, was brilliant last year. He was on pace to almost identically match Dan Marino's legendary season. Like if you project what Stafford did in his 6 games or 7 games out to a full 16-game season, he would have been right there with Marino's legendary season.
Yeah, I'm a big Stafford fan. I like him a lot. I think that that's why when Quinn came on board and the philosophy started to change as far as, right, we got to get tougher on the line of scrimmage. We got to run the ball more. We got to protect Matthew Stafford. And then you get Bevel coming in. Bevel wants to run the football. You bring in Kerryon Johnson, and you're starting to see it. You see, okay, this is what could happen to Matthew Stafford if you actually protect the guy, give him a running game, and maybe give him a couple of explosive receivers like Galladay. We'll get to the other receivers' potential down the line, but what about the protection in general? Because it's not set yet. I would think it could be a top need on offense. Would that be right?
It's one of them. So they do have Taylor Decker at left tackle. He is going into his option year. He's been good. Probably not as good as we want him to be or Lions fans want him to be, but he is a perfectly fine starting left tackle. They went out and spent $9.5 million a year to bring in Hal Vaitai to play right tackle. That's a very ambitious salary for Big V. I like him, but he's replacing Rick Wagner, who had fallen off a little bit, had some injuries. They could be set at tackle. And they do have Tyrell Crosby, who has played moderately well as the swing tackle and does have some potential to eventually start up as a right tackle. Not on the left side, though. Big problem is that they let right guard Graham Glasgow go. He was a good one. And
why did that happen? Especially with
one of the reasons why they did it, last year they did a bizarre thing. They rotated their guards in and out. So, and it was a series of guys. It was Kenny Wiggins, who they just brought back on free agency without any surprise there. Joe Dahl at left guard primarily, and Glasgow at right guard. And they rotated those guys in and out. They had sort of a rotation rather than having continuity up front. And they loved it, even though the fans hated it. And by and large, it didn't really do a lot. Their offensive line was slightly above average last year doing that. And they have not replaced Glasgow at all. They brought back Ode Ibushi and Kenny Wiggins, and right now those would be your guys that would be going at it, and that doesn't excite anybody. But they've devalued the position so much that I don't see them doing a lot with it, especially since they paid Vaitai so much. So they are set at tackle for now. But if they don't want to pay Decker, he could realistically get $18 million a year.
Yeah, that's a lot.
That might be a little rich for him. That they could be in the market to draft an offensive tackle and maybe move Vaitai into right guard for a year and then shuffle things around in 2021. That's certainly a thought. Frank Ragnow at center is a rock. He's great. He's an emerging All-Pro at center, and that was their first-round pick 2 years ago. He's been very well worth it. So they're solid. Could they be better on the offensive line? Yes, but it's not what's holding them back.
Yeah, and you would think that that's definitely a position that they're going to add a few bodies throughout the draft. And I guess also it depends on what they think about the other young kids that were free agents, rookies, that I kind of think are interesting. You tell me, you follow them more, and that's the kid from Wisconsin and the other kid from Iowa.
Yeah, Bo Benshowel, they really wanted him to be a thing last year, and just from the first day of training camp, his movement skills are so rudimentary. He still has not figured out that he has to move his feet when he's engaged, and that's there's a pretty steep learning curve there. Was great in college. It hasn't worked out in the pros so far. He gets another shot at it. He's back. They'd love for him to step up, but they're not going to depend on that. Is the long and the short of it.
Okay. Let's now talk about the wide receiver position because this is a wide receiver draft, as we all know.
Yes, it is.
And even though the Lions look like they have a solid trio with Amendola, with Jones, and with Galladay, there's not a lot of depth past those top three. And if anything happens to Galladay, all of a sudden you got big trouble. So with this type of class of receivers, I have to believe the Lions are going to take one of them.
It's a major priority. Keep in mind, not a single wide receiver on this roster is under contract after 2020.
Wow.
They're all up. And nobody really expects Jones or Amendola to be here long term. They're both on the wrong side of 30.
Yep.
Marvin Jones has had 2 seasons in a row end with an ACL injury. He's done it late both years, so it doesn't get the attention. But this is a guy that's got some recurring knee issues. So they are definitely in the market for a number 2 wide receiver to play opposite Kenny Golladay, who emerged as a Pro Bowler last year, led the NFL in touchdown catches. He's great, and he will get a contract extension. There is no doubt in anybody's mind that he will be a Lion long term. Hasn't been done yet. But beyond that, the cupboard is absolutely barren at wide receiver. They have got to get multiple wide receivers into the system. They don't even have any developmental guys in the pipeline. They really don't. So it's a case that they did sign Geronimo Allison. He can be a 1-year Band-Aid as your number 3 outside wide receiver. That's it. That's the extent of their depth chart right now. So they've got to get at least one receiver who can play right away into the system, and preferably more than that.
And at tight end, you lose Logan Thomas, who, by the way, I think played 31% of the offensive snaps last year, because we know Bevel likes to run the 2 tight end offense. And even
he was good too. I'm excited for him for where he was wound up. I think he's going to be very good.
Okay. And of course, he was a former quarterback, right?
Yes, at Virginia Tech. Yeah.
So, you got the kid from Georgia who kind of would be stepping into that number 3 role. Are the Lions satisfied, or are they going to look for a number 3?
I think Nauta, he looked pretty good in preseason last year, so I think they will be secure with him being the 3rd, but wouldn't surprise me if they add another day 3 tight end. Something to watch, Jesse James was atrocious as a free agent acquisition last year. It was obvious from the first day of training camp that Logan Thomas was significantly better than him.
What happened?
Keep an eye on Jesse James just either being phased out, traded, or just given up on. It was not there the first year. He did not fit in Bevel's scheme. He's another former Steeler that probably should have stayed in Pittsburgh. Honestly, the physicality to his game was not there. He runs like he's in quicksand. Did not have reliable hands. Didn't block all that well. It was rough. He was a massive flop that doesn't get enough attention for how bad he was, quite honestly. Yeah. It pains me to say that, but
he actually had that good last season in Pittsburgh, where you
did.
Thought, oh, that's going to be a nice combination, Hawkinson and James. So, but like you said, sometimes the scheme just doesn't work for the player. That's the coaching staff's fault. That's the GM's fault. They've got to get together, understand what they're running, and identify whether or not a specific player can run their system. And it can't be guesswork and say, well, I can make him fit the system. So maybe you could trade him back to Pittsburgh. Who knows? Because I know they could use some more depth at tight end.
Yeah, well, they did just sign former Lions flop Eric Ebron.
So that's right.
It's a vicious circle in the NFL.
Yeah, right. Okay, running back. Kerryon Johnson, just got to keep him healthy. That's definitely the number 1 priority. But Bo Scarborough, wow. That's a nice story. Do you believe that he's got a legitimate chance to be a solid number 2 back for them?
Yeah, and they are definitely deploying the running back by committee with Johnson and Scarborough. They do have Ty Johnson, who was a middle round pick last year, speed guy. Showed a little bit as a rookie. I think he's capable of doing more, and I think they believe that as well. Yeah, the Scarborough was great down the stretch as sort of the between the tackles sledgehammer. The Lions actually ran the ball fairly successfully, and for the team, they had their best season running the football since 2013. It didn't help them win, but the fact that they ran the ball so successfully, especially after Stafford went down, because when David Blau and Jeff Driscoll are your quarterbacks, you sort of want, okay, let's make these guys throw the ball. And they did wind up running the ball pretty successfully. Scarborough was good. If Kerryon Johnson can be healthy, he'll be great. The problem is keeping him healthy. He has had an injury every year going back to his sophomore year of high school. So you're asking a lot to try to keep him healthy on the field for 16 games. They're going to get some insurance at some point. I don't think it's a huge priority. I think it's a 3rd, 4th, 5th round. They have scouted that area of the draft and the running backs in that area that are projected there anyways pretty heavily. So that's where I expect the help to come.
And they also have that kid from Slippery Rock, West Hills. So
you know what? And yes, and he had one really good quarter before he got hurt.
Hey, that's all you need sometimes as a rookie.
That's right.
Agent rookie. Just give me some film to work with. Okay.
That's right.
let's close up with special teams. And I don't talk about it too often, but it's worth mentioning on this specific report because you got a new coach, and the team went out and signed 4 free agents that are going to help special teams. And the team needs a punter, don't they?
Yes. Longtime punter Sam Martin is gone. We wish him well. Great dude. He picked in a very unfortunate time. He had one really bad kick in his career. It happened to come in the playoff loss to Dallas, and it directly led to them losing. And most Lions fans never forgave him for that.
That happens.
They do have a couple of punters that are on future reserve contracts. They will get a shot at it. It would not surprise me if they draft a punter. I'm praying that it's later in the draft than like the 5th round, but we'll see. Remember, this isn't a regime that in the first draft, Bob Quinn did draft a long snapper who didn't even make the team. So we have some trepidation about that. Yeah, they brought in a coach from Cincinnati, a rising young, energetic guy. It should be a good fit. The special teams have been okay. They're good at kicker with Matt Prater. He's timeless. He's got a huge leg. But Martin also handled the kickoff duties, and that's something that they're going to be looking at for punters who can also kick off.
Okay.
They do have an enigmatic return guy in Jamal Agnew, who has been a Pro Bowler and has been great at times, but also deservedly got benched last year. So I think they will look for somebody in the later rounds of the draft, anyways, who can play either wide receiver or cornerback and also return kicks, because I think that's a door that's open for somebody there. Agnew, we hope that he gets back to being the Pro Bowler that he was as a rookie, but he has no value to the team on defense. So if he's not getting it done as a return man, there's room for more there.
Well, I'm going to open up the draft guide, and I look here, and I see Braden Mann, the number 1 punter for our lads, who not only is the number 1 punter, but he is also one of the top kickoff specialists in the country.
Boom. There you go.
So
6th round, make it happen.
Yeah, but like you said, don't do it too early though. So
yeah. If it's before the 6th round, Lions fans are already very antsy about Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia. I think taking a punter in the 4th or 5th round would probably not go well.
Yeah, I think I don't care how good the kicker is anymore in college and how desperately I need a place kicker in the NFL. I am never going to take a place kicker earlier than, like you said, the 6th or 7th round, maybe the 5th if I have a ton of picks, because I think that whatever it is, it's got to be the pressure of being drafted. It just and we know kickers are like goalies in hockey. They're just very difficult to predict what they're going to do. They're emotional. They're easily rattled. And I think when you put all that added pressure on them and draft them too high, it just never seems to work out. It hardly ever seems. I should say never. Sometimes it does, but rarely.
And you can find very good punters. I'll go to the Cleveland Browns for a second. They got Jamie Gillen, the Scottish Hammer, last year as an undrafted free agent. He was great. He's going to be a good punter in the NFL for a long time. You can find guys who can punt. I don't want to say off the street, but you can find them as undrafted free agents for sure.
All right, Jeff. So Twitter is at Jeff Risdon, correct?
You got it.
All right. And again, at the Lions Wire at USA Today. And if you have your mock draft right now for the Lions, it's going to be Okudah, right? Yes.
Unless Chase Young is somehow there, I don't see that happening. It seems like Washington is married to taking him for better or for worse. I don't necessarily understand that, but it is what it is.
And if for some reason they don't take Okudah and stay at 3, that's the trick. That's the question that I think is just, where does that go?
Yeah.
So give me a player. Would it be a defensive lineman?
I think Derek Brown, the defensive tackle from Auburn, is the most likely choice there. I would not rule out Tristan Wirfs, though. I think that's probably higher than most people would expect him to go, and it would be a surprise to even those of us who cover the Lions, but you cannot rule it out. But Derek Brown would make the most sense of what the Lions will be looking to do there.
Jeff, I appreciate it, and hopefully we'll get an opportunity to talk after the draft.
It would be my pleasure. Thanks so much.